Good morning, Year 10, and welcome to the work being set for the week beginning the 27th of April. And this week we're going to be looking at Paper 1 practice. So I've got an extract for you from a novel called The Goldfinch by Donna Tartt. Very interesting novel about art, culture, the nature of how we see the world. And there is also, if you are interested in that, there is also a film. The film isn't great. The book is rather wonderful and really worth reading. So again, just some interesting sort of cultural development for you to think about today. So what the work will look like over the course of the week is there'll be a retrieval quiz on paper 2. That will be set via Microsoft Teams, and you'll be able to access it in your areas later this morning. And then we're just going to work on the Goldfinch from questions 1 to 3 this week. Next week we're going to work on questions 4 and 5. I've done a guided reading video, which is just me reading the extract that we'll be looking at this week. And then the questions are set in the assignment section of Teams, so it'll be really easy for you to submit your work and for me to get it and give you feedback. And on that note, when you've submitted your response, I'll send you some further indicative content and some feedback, which will help you redraft your answers. And then this week, we're going to start trying to do some more online face-to-face teaching through Teams. And I've asked everyone to meet today at 12:10, which will be our normal lesson time, so that we can start to organise that and just see what kind of access people have to Teams. So looking at what we're doing this week then. So the first thing is the retrieval quiz, and it's based on the work that we did last week on language paper 2 with a focus on articles, and I'll also be giving people feedback on the work that they've done and the work they've submitted, and also the work that you did on GCSE Pod, which again was really thorough and really detailed, so thank you for that. Now, we need to think about this kind of particular piece of work through some modelling and how we go through these things. So just some reminders about the whole of the source. So that's what question 3 is about. So questions 1 and 2, I want you to have a go at pretty independently. The question 1 is the 4 marker. Again, as we know, most students get 4 marks from that. It's just a sort of starter to get you warmed up into the paper. Question 2, which is on language, we've done a lot of work on that, and I trust you to be able to do that independently. Now, question 3, which is the first one detailing the whole of the text, can be a bit more difficult, and I want you to have a real close think about that. The whole of the source is what we're looking at, and that we're dealing with the beginning of a novel. So the opening of a book, how does it set things up for you as a reader? If it's the very beginning, how is it going to keep on engaging you? And the classic question we have is the text to interest you as a reader. Now, we're coming back to this idea, how has the writer structured the text? That structure is a deliberate process the writer goes through. It's intention. It's not just accident. They haven't just woken up one morning and thought, well, I'll write a novel today, and then they've built it like that. How have they structured the text to interest you as a reader? And the examiner will ask you to write around these sort of things. And the key word that keeps on coming up is this idea of focus. Focus your attention at the beginning of the source, changes this focus as the source develops, and then this element here, any other structural features that interest you. And it's this area here that I think will really give students of your ability the opportunity to show your mettle and be looking at getting a full 8 marks out of 8 for this particular answer. So it's these things to be thinking about. So just in terms of modelling this a little bit more, I'm now going to go to the extract itself. What I suggest you do now is pause this video and read the extract, start to do some annotation, and watch the guided reading video that I've got, just so that you can hear what some of the words sound like, just so you've got that sort of clarity. So I'd suggest you pause this video now and just take 10 minutes to read over this extract properly and look at the questions. If you're not sure where the questions are, so just on the page, question 1 and question 2, I want you to do independently, and the question you're focusing now on is question 3. Okay, so having paused the video, let's think about the kind of annotations and structural points you could have started to make out. So first of all, if you just look at it overall, you can see obviously a fairly strong distinction and difference between the shape of the paragraphs and their length. And so your eye should probably be drawn to this paragraph here, and you can think about all the detail and the information that you've got in this paragraph that the character is thinking about. This is all about their interest in strangers and what lies behind people. What are they interested in? What engages them? What do they do? This confirms what some of you may have already started to realise, that we're in a New York setting here. So it's an American setting, isn't it? So Grand Central Station in the middle of New York, the Carlyle Hotel, the New York family. Columbia is a famous university in New York. The West Side, again, a famous sort of cultural hotspot in America. The Lincoln Center, a large arts place, and Carnegie Hall, a famous music venue. So think about where these characters are. They're in an art gallery. How do we find that out? The grandfather drifts away a few paintings over, so we get a sense of that location. We get this immediate idea that the mother is quite a cultured woman. She's referencing the Parthenon, which is a part of sort of ancient Greek culture, used as a munitions storehouse. Munitions are weapons. And she's talking about the sort of nature of how, human history and behaviour impacts on art and culture. Now, when you look at the structure itself, let's have a think about this. So we start in first-person narrative, and then we move into a series of rhetorical questions. And again, just think about these focuses. So we start our focus on a girl that the narrator, Theo, is looking at. The focus remains on her, and thinking about sort of the wider implications of her life. This sort of zooming in, isn't it, on the scribbled name on the flute case. So we go from the girl to then looking at her flute case. It's very specific. And then we change focus again back to the mother. And again, these things that are very important that the mother's saying. And again, those aren't really for the child's benefit, aren't they? They're the mother expressing her own opinion. So the focus changes to the mother's voice. And the child, Theo, is just kind of recording it. He's not really paying attention, though, is he? He's just kind of, it's going in one ear and out the other, I suspect. He's looking at the girl's grandfather here. And again, look at the change of perspective. First-person narrative, rhetorical question, then we have dialogue, and then we go back to the definite article, the grandfather. And then we focus back on the girl, and this time he's focusing on her physical presence as opposed to her identity. Thinking about, what kind of sport she does. Tennis, ballerina, gymnast, high diver. And again, he's making kind of cultural connections, so he quickly moves away from the idea of being a tennis player or a sports person. He goes into ballerina or gymnast or diving, all of which are sports that they get marked for artistic content. So again, there's this really strong focus in this text on the nature of art and culture. Even going back to this phrase here, arms like carved marble, the simile here is the sort of simile that you might have about a museum or about a statue. Then structurally we go into this long paragraph which obviously focuses our mind here. Once again we have a series of rhetorical questions, and then we have the writer focusing on themselves, really, don't we? This is very much the inside of their own head, their own interiority. How do they deal with looking at strange? And we have all this information now about what they do, and actually there's no mention of the girl until back over here. So this whole section here is about his typical behaviours and the past people he'd seen. And again, a frog gypsiest girl in a wheelchair in front of the Carlyle Hotel, talking about these particular things and this kind of thought process. Does he do this all the time? Now, because this is the start of the novel, you suspect as a reader that this girl will be playing a greater part in his life than the girl that he talks about here. And then again, it comes up with some further theories about their relationship. Then we go back to the mother, don't we? The shift in focus, and literally this phrase, her voice brought me back to myself. We're in the last room of the show. So just this phrasing here, we're in the last room of the show, shows how the writer is just sort of drifting around. He's thinking about the girl, and then he just drifts around and they get to the last room of the show. And again, importantly, he doesn't mention a single painting or piece of art that's in the gallery. He's just looking at the girl, he's thinking about her and her grandfather, what might their relationship be, or his assumption about the grandfather. But it's interesting, isn't it, because he's got this really strong thought process, but not once is this brain applied to any of the stuff around him. So again, how does this structure tell us stuff about the character? Well, first of all, it tells us that he doesn't really listen to his mother. That's important, doesn't it, in terms of the way it's set out. It tells us that he has a really deep thought process. We get this long paragraph here exploring the inside of his head. And so the way the writer shifts focus, even this, just a one-line paragraph here for the mother coming back, that again could be used to suggest that he and the mother have quite a sharp relationship, that she, needs to cut across him a lot to take him out of these daydreams. And then he comes back to these things, and then the last focus of the kind of exhibition shop, the nature of the commercialization of art, is what this section finishes on. So again, when you're thinking about the structure and the focus, think about these kind of things. How is the organization of the text created? How are the paragraphs structured? Where are the questions? They tend to open things. The dialogue opens a paragraph. And again, the number of questions in the text suggests, again, a novel of complexity and mystery in some of the ideas that are being worked on. So, coming back to this, here's your question for question 3. How has the writer structured the text to interest you as a reader? Use the examiner's comments on the left to help you consider what you're writing. So, just a reminder, so this is at the bottom end of an answer. Remember, there's this structure, level 1 to level 4. Remember, that's not grading. This is for the examiner, not in terms of an overall grade for you as a student. So this idea of simple awareness of structure, some understanding, clear understanding, detailed and perceptive, and everyone in this class should be looking at these sort of answers. Judicious textual detail, judicious means well judged, well selected. So that's what we're looking for from you there. And then just some final reminders about this process of analysis. So here are some basic questions and some ideas. Okay, think about what, how, why, and why. Why have they chosen this structural feature over another structural feature? Why the regular use of rhetorical questions in this one as opposed to a series of statements? Why have they chosen to bounce between short paragraphs and a much longer paragraph? Think about these things the whole time and develop your writing for question 3 around that. So just some final reminders. So complete questions 1, 2 and 3. That will be in the assignment sections of Microsoft Teams. When you press submit, this will automatically send me your answers in your area. You can put them in your class notebook as well, but this will be the easiest way to do them for me to be able to give you feedback. When I receive your response, I'll mark it, I'll give you some feedback, and I'll send you some indicative content for you to redraft your question 2 and 3 responses. And then when I've got the work in from the majority and hopefully all of you, I'll produce a whole class feedback video to review that work, which I'm currently working on for the paper 2 article stuff that you've also done. I hope you have a good week. Look forward to talking to some of you this week as well. Look after yourself, stay healthy, and I'll speak to you all soon. Okay, take care, ladies and gentlemen. Bye.